Morning, Enimwa. Good morning, Raymond.
Good morning.
And that was the sound of Enimwa beatboxing.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of my many talents, as chairman and captain of the female team of multimedia.
Of the Joy Sports
Yes,
Invitational.
People have been questioning
sir.
that imposition, but clearly, you move on.
Oh, Raymond, are you going to wash out dirty linen in public this morning?
I'm sorry.
I'm even surprised that there's actually dirty
I
linen
retract
at all. I mean,
for saying the
as
truth.
far as I know, all our linen is clean.
Okay.
Yeah.
To
We want
the
to
dry
believe
cleaners
that.
and back. And as the captain of the team, I do not appreciate your behavior.
Yours is not even a bigger problem. It's Papaya's own. That is the problem.
So please, those of you who have been hearing Papaya Wasari, we are... our lead producer on the Super Morning Show will
Yeah.
be... Papa, are you still striking?
He's striking.
Hey, Papa,
He's
you are really
striking
going to
as
strike?
much as I'm doing the triple jump. You don't
I
understand.
see.
Okay, let's
We are
start with the
serious.
Daily
Yes.
Statesman,
Serious.
Raymond.
There's a movie I watched, Doomed to Fail.
Oh, Raymond.
No, the Daily Statesman is reporting this morning. Yeah, you've not watched the movie before.
There's no such movie, Raymond. Read the Daily Statesman.
Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire fight cocoa diseases, and Ghana NPP celebrate Buzia. Uphold the rule of law. President charges African lawyers, and those are the stories that they are reporting this
On the
morning.
front page of the Today, the Archbishop Duncan Williams blasts Otabill's critics. I'll serve my father's king, Takiteko True II says, and UT boss Prince Kofi Amwa being accused of money laundering.
And the Finder has more of these stories. It says ministry mute over digital migration. Gilbert's litany of questions remain unanswered, and the shoemaker impregnating homeless girls. This is a claim from a gentleman. And Faith Forwarders strike against the CTN. There's also another story about the president rallying Nigeria to join the Continental Free Trade Area. Yes. And the Kuapa Cocoa charts new course for sustainable development.
Now, the graphic business is asking a very important question this morning. Economics of corporate governance in Ghana, are boards useless? Learn from fallouts of projects funded with oil revenues. That's according to ASEP. And Tetma wades into public debt controversy. No minister can change public account methodology.
The BNFT is reporting this morning confusion hits pots over CTN and leadership. By example, why the controller and accountant general's war against Froster is actually a very good thing. And why are we underfunding the judiciary, which is undermining the output, is also on the front page. But in today's, the feature story is how liable is the auditor? Mindful of the recent collapse and the questions being asked.
On the front page of the Daily Guide, NDC shops for chairman, and that headline goes with the pictures of Kwesi Botre, Betty Modidrisu, Samuel Fosu Ampofo, and Benjamin Kumbo. Martin Amidu goes wild over suspicious cash. Man arrested over journalist murder. And Nana rocks Nigeria at Abuja Bar Conference. And by Nana, I mean President Nana Akufo-Addo, even though that sounds like a hip life headline.
Yeah, Nana rocks.
Yeah, Nana rocks Nigeria, yep.
The only Nana I know is Nana Boro.
Okay.
Okay, he's a musician. You don't know him.
I know him.
Okay, now the Daily Heritage is reporting this morning. NDC will win 2020 polls. And this is Kwaboche teacher as he joins race for... Okay, now let me go back to it. NDC will win 2020 polls, says Kwaboche teacher as he joins race for Deputy Central Regional Secretary.
What's the name of the teacher again?
What?
No, so
I want to know
Kwabotre
if
the
you taught
area or Kwabotre the school?
No, but Kwame Duncan, current Central Regional Minister, was a teacher. He lashed me a couple of times.
Okay, now, one informed married woman used contraceptives. The Statistical Services Maternal Health Service is already out.
On the front page of the New Crusading Guide, Kwesi Botre is angry, denies picking NDC chairmanship form. Lushan CEO accuses UT Bank of fraud and money laundering. And a mayor of Kano praises President Akufo-Addo. Also, 67,000 passports uncollected, names to be published, and that's from the passport office.
Now, the Chronicle is reporting this morning suspected murder of journalists arrested, and Church of Pentecost bids farewell to Apostle Onyina. That's on the front page with boycott foreign
Apostle
goods.
Professor Opokonyina. Just saying.
Apostle Doctor is what's written here.
Well, he's a prof now.
According to the Chronicle, is Apostle Doctor.
Please,
Okay.
he's a prof.
No, I'm not doubting. This week I'm for Christianity. Boycott foreign goods to grow Ghana's economy. AGI. That's on the front page of the
And
I wonder what you'll be for next week. Go ahead.
Finally, from me, from the Daily Graphic, GES to recruit 8,872 staff. This exercise takes off September this year. Consolidated Bank offloads 1,700 workers. Process ends by September 30th. And President advocates free education in all African countries. On the back page of the Daily Graphic, Ghana to get £20 million from the UK to implement jobs and economic transformation program.
20.
I saw what you just did there. Yeah, the UK.
Now,
Okay.
Ghanaian Times is reporting this morning, President urges Nigeria to support Africa's single market and don't interfere with the education system. Mathematics professor cautions politicians. And the last one there is about a book of condolence in memory of Kofi Annan, which is closing on Friday.
All right. So we'll be going straight into the newspapers. But guys, let me just take 30 seconds to say good morning to a couple of people. First of all, Mr. Daniel Batidam. Good morning, and thanks for doing the listening. And also, Reverend George Peniel, the head of PMSC, chairman of GCB. Happy birthday. May God bless you. Enjoy your day to the max from Tessa. So, Mr. Batidam and Reverend Peniel, good morning to both of you. Anyway, we haven't done enough talking about these workers who are leaving Consolidated
Yes,
Bank.
so this morning the Daily Graphic is reporting that about 1,700 workers of the Consolidated Bank of Ghana are going to be laid off. Now, out of this 1,700, 700 will be mobile bankers of Beige Bank. Their contracts or their termination will take effect from the end of August. There'll be about 1,000 employees who are going to be laid off collectively from the 5 banks. Their termination should be around the end of September, so they would have worked for 2 months with the Consolidated Bank of Ghana. Now, the whole thing around this is really to rationalize the business, to make it cost effective. They found out that at the end of the month, if they're going to pay salaries, it's going to cost over 50 million Ghana cedis. And frankly, they cannot afford it. Also, there are about 191 branches of the bank. So what they're trying to do is to reduce that to 120. They have over 3,700 staff. So the goal there as well is to reduce that to about 2,000. Half of staff are going to be laid off and over 70 branches are going to be shut down. Now, they did a comparison between Consolidated Bank and some of the leading banks of in Ghana. So, for example, GCB has 1,915 staff. EcoBank has 1,500 staff in 67 branches. Fidelity has 1,027 staff in 75 branches. So at the moment, the Consolidated Bank they're overstaffed, which is really the story. So end of August, end of September, they will be laying off about 1,700 people.
You know, even way back in 2008, 2009, when Barclays was undergoing this huge expansion, it was said to be, opening of new branches, it was said to be detrimental to the health of the company. Yes, and so today, it's even more worrying, and we all saw this coming, wasn't it? With the new face of banking, where almost every ad I do for a bank in the morning is for an IT solution, an app, a mobile a payment of sorts, something that reduces your need to visit a branch. So already branches are in danger, and you're talking about a bank that has inherited neighboring branches of 5 different banks. So it's worrying, especially since, remember what Dr. Sedo reminded us of yesterday, that these workers may not get any severance at all.
Yes, it looks very much the case. And you ask yourself, dependence on these people, because one person going home, maybe an entire family not getting food.
On the average, every worker has 4 dependents, Ray.
Yeah. Now, let's move on to another issue related to these banks. And when we went through the UT Bank and why it collapsed, some 84 million outstanding loan issue came up. And it was dropped at the doorstep of a name that you sure should be interested in. And that name was Quincy Sintim Abuaje. And Quincy Sintim Abuaje was with Lushan International Energy. Now, they are responding to the claims here. They held a press conference yesterday, and their major claim was that they were defrauded by the UT Bank. They pick out the then CEO of the UT Bank, specifically Kofi Amoabin, and says that Kofi Amoabin rather, in his firm, UT owed Lushan 250 million US dollars, not 84 million Ghana cedis, so 250 million US dollars. They said this is how the thing happened. Now, they said a former employee of Lushan and one other company, and his other company colluded with UT's Kofi Amoabin for them to pay money in the name of loans to Lushan to this company. So, all the while that there was a conversation about whether or not the people were going to owe them or not, they were dealing with somebody who had no capacity to establish any deal or arrangement for and on behalf of Lushan.
So already I owe Enimwa, and then Raymond, you come to me and say that I'm going to give you money and make it look like I'm giving Enimwa a loan. So on my books, I'll write that Enimwa owes me, but the money is going to you. And this is the story Lushan is telling.
That's the story that Lushan is telling. And they said that the person involved in this case is one individual who is an accountant anyway. His name is specifically put out there as Kennedy Oham. And also one other project manager of Salt Pond Offshore Producing Company. So this is where they say the money went to, and they couldn't have in any way given the money to Lushan. They said this is the kind of defrauding that they want. In fact, they even suspect that it was money laundering. But so they used the name of the institution to try and clean up this kind of money, but it got to an individual, and people should stop tagging them with this. They say they've been trying to pursue Mr. Amoabin and the UT Bank then to deal with the matter in a much more consistent manner.
Guys, let's hold on now. Remember, we've been talking about a story that we'll be dealing with today, and that is the in relation with GNPC's purchase of some properties. The person at the center of it all is Dr. KK Sapon. I'll ask Raymond to give us a wrap of what the issue is before we speak to Dr. Sapon. But Dr. Sapon is with us on the line. Good morning, Doc. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
Great. Doc, for us to have listeners fully appreciate what issue it is we are talking about, I would ask that you just give us a minute and Raymond would go through the story as we know it so far. Ray.
So we do know, and of course, there's been a lot of reports about whether or not this has happened in the institution, but specifically, what we know is that Dr. KK Sapon and the GNPC is said to have procured for the institution GNPC some, what they call it, 7.5 million deal, which is in dollars. And this is for a specific facility. And the facility in this case is a 6-block residential unit. This is in Takoradi we are talking about. The understanding is that this was bought from another institution that he's very much connected to. That institution is the mother company for the, what they call it, the Royal Bank, but it's called Global Haulage Limited. Now, the details are pretty clear. Because Dr. KK Sapon was related to Royal Bank, and Royal Bank was superintended by Global Haulage. The suspicion is that this could have been a contributor to, and we know Royal Bank has collapsed now. We have given you details of how Royal Bank collapsed and how it's related to some subsidiaries too in this particular case.
Okay.
So that's the concern about how, and most of the report says it is staggering, it's a huge amount, it's way too bloated amount to be spent on just a 6-unit residential facility in the Western region.
Right, so let's go straight to the phone lines now and speak with Dr. Sapon. Dr. Sapon, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Who am I speaking with?
My name is Daniel Dazi.
All right, Daniel, how are you?
I am doing well.
Good.
Yeah. So let me begin by asking from this letter that we have, this memo that you wrote to your chief finance officer that we have in our possession. It says that I can confirm we have executed. I am by this memo authorizing you to effect the payments to Global Haulage Company Limited, the vendor, instantly as per the invoice attached. I am taking this unusual step in view of the urgency of this matter. So in the first place, why did we take this unusual step?
Oh, well, in the first place, let me confirm that yes, there has been a purchase of property, residential property. Is not just 6-unit blocks. It's a number of blocks. I think in total, I can't call offhand, but it could be as many as 18 to 21 flats or so in a gated community on Chapel Hill in Takoradi. As you may be aware, GMPC is moving parts of its operations to the Western region. We already started the GMPC Foundation. It's been working there for well over a year now. From rented premises, we're now going to put the official GMPC office complex in Takoradi. But then moving the staff there, we thought we should procure accommodation. There were lots of people trying to sell bits of 1 unit here, 2 units here to us. And then we had this property, which I was aware of because I had been connected with Global Haulage. I must tell you that the transaction is above board. All valuation reports by the relevant agencies. It went through the board of directors. The board of directors subcommittee on properties look at it and recommended to the board. Because of my experience, knowing that I've been related to Global Haulage, I never took part in the negotiations. And even the vendors themselves would tell you it was pretty difficult getting me to help them with a transaction. Well, after it had been approved properly by the board, they were demanding their payment. If you look at it, we're going to Christmas. They needed their money for whatever reason. And the lawyer who had the documentation had taken some leave, so we couldn't reach her. As chief executive, what I said is that go ahead and pay, because I executed the sale and purchase agreement as chief executive. All the documentation, everything is there. You can see the date that I executed it. And that because the lady wasn't there for us to have access to the documentation, didn't mean that we shouldn't pay them. As an accountant, I know that we can do pre-auditing and we can do post-auditing. If you are sure of the transaction, post-auditing and pre-auditing should give you the same results. So I say, go ahead and pay. But you notice that from the documents I've cited, which came from GMPC, somebody in GMPC itself, you notice that it's written there 2 million paid on such and such a day. I must tell you that all the 7-point-something million was not paid on one day. I think it was broken down. Whoever did the documentation, you notice after normally man approval, I don't see these things again. It was staggered and paid to them. I don't see anything wrong with this at all. We are in preparation. We have moved. We are moving, and we are going to move back into the Western region. And I find it quite strange that just said documents, those who publish don't even make any contact with the chief executive, because if I didn't have courage about the transaction, I wouldn't go in and say that I've taken this unusual step. Unusual steps in the sense that normally I want the pre-auditing and those things to go on. But my staff not being available didn't mean that the vendor should suffer if they needed some of the money. So that is the background to it. And I can confirm that me personally was not deeply involved because I had ever acted as the group chief executive for Global Haulage before the old man died. So I must be honest, yes, if it's the most suitable property there was no reason why we shouldn't buy it if we saw the need to buy it. And it's not something that was done nicodemously. It was done openly. The whole board, nobody on the board can tell me he wasn't aware.
Right.
Yeah, everybody on the board, from the chairman through to ordinary members, everybody was on the board. And even GMPC staff itself involved in property cannot say they were not aware. The issue of payment will not necessarily negate the transaction.
Dr. Sapong.
Yes.
Dr. Sapong, yes. The question that has been raised has been your connection with the group, the Global Haulage Group in the first place. That is, you were head of Global Haulage. You were also head of...
Wait.
Yes, Mr. Sapong, Dr. Sapong.
If Royal Bank has nothing to do with the transaction anyway, don't go there. It's the Global Haulage. This is
yes.
Corporate. I was once head. It doesn't mean that I can't do transaction with them. If you disclose your interest and you excuse yourself from discussions, That is the normal corporate governance thing, and that is what I did.
Doc, in the statements that management of former Royal Bank released, you were described as a close friend of the owner of Royal Bank, who is also the owner of Global Haulage. He said that he appointed two of his closest friends. So looking at that, doesn't that clearly present an interest in the welfare of these companies, Global Haulage, Royal Bank?
I've made a point to you that the mere fact that you're connected to an organization doesn't mean that you cannot do transactions with them. If you disclose your interest, you don't sit in the discussions and other people independently do it. There's nothing wrong. Then otherwise, many transactions in this country will never be done because you can see your son, your child, your relative working in the institution. Would that not be connection? That would be connection. Here, yes, I admit I was connected, but it didn't mean that I made a decision. And I said that we have a strong board. The board chairman himself was there. And I think that for the good people of the Western region, if we are moving there and we have to acquire property instead of renting, from my financial analysis, when you rent properties within 8 to 10 years, you pay back.
Doc,
you pay back the value of the property.
Dr. Sapon, the issue that we are dealing with this morning is the issue of potential conflict of interest where you were head of Global...
Be educated, Daniel. As I've explained to you, that when you are connected to an institution, it doesn't mean you cannot do transaction with the institution. It depends on the disclosures you make.
But then again, yes.
If I had kept it to myself, that I didn't know anything about the institution, and I did the negotiations of the transaction, that would have been really conflict of interest. I know the institution. I disclose that I know the institution. I do not get involved in the negotiations. I didn't do the evaluation. I didn't do the negotiations. It's done by a separate committee, which I recuse myself. They bring the report to the board. The board approves it. My role as chief executive, I'm paying. That is not conflict of interest.
It says here that I wish to indicate that I, the chief executive, have taken full responsibility for this transaction.
Yeah, no, I mean the payment of the transaction. Maybe there's an omission there. The transaction was not done by me personally. The acquisition was done by the whole board. The board subcommittee examined it. They did all the negotiations. You can call those involved and see whether I personally was involved.
But then you took responsibility for this unusual step which the bank, the organization was to take.
But that is the hallmark of a good chief executive. I take responsibility for the unusual step. The unusual step being waiting for pre-auditing. That was the unusual step. And I said, pay them, because I have executed the documents. I mentioned the lawyer's name. She wasn't there. And you can call her whether the documents had not been executed. Please, let's do serious journalism. It doesn't mean that something has come out and therefore people must be hung. You must look at the details of the transaction. If I did a negotiation, that's different. I did not do the negotiation. The board has got a subcommittee which looks at properties and acquisitions. They look at it.
Dr. Sapon, you mentioned earlier that you needed to take this unusual step because the vendor needed the money. Was this need related to the injection of capital into Royal Bank?
Well, for whatever reason, I wouldn't know. You bought your property. You've executed all the documents. They brought their invoice for payment. Your staff is not there. Who is holding it? And therefore, you say they should not be paid. If they took the money and they were injecting into the Royal Bank, so be it. But there will be nothing wrong with it because they've sold their property properly to us. And if they get the money and they inject into the Royal Bank to save it, what is wrong with it? I resigned from the Royal Bank about 2 years ago. Please.
Right. In respect of good corporate governance, is it not curious that at that point, did you not see a potential difficulty to purge yourself of this issue, considering the role that you played? Also, considering the fact that you are being described as a close friend of the founder of both of these companies.
No, but that does not mean that wherever I work, I can't do transactions with them. I worked in Cocoa Board. They were in Cocoa. They did me. I didn't have to do transactions with them because I know them. Please, I don't think that I work in food distribution. That's even where I met the old man. They didn't mean that I didn't have to do transactions with them. You see, with time we build relationship, but that should not affect our professional judgment, and that's me. My professional judgment wasn't compromised. Going into print to say, pay, I think that's unusual step, meaning that I would have waited for pre-auditing because they were looking for all the documents. The auditors are there. Ask them whether they haven't got all the documents by now. The lawyers are there. Ask them they haven't got all the documents now. Please don't let us.
Okay, so let's focus on this section of it, this unusual step of it. You said that you took the unusual step because the vendor needed the money. Why should the vendors need influence your practice, your regular practice as an institution?
You see, if the practice, I said they need their money. Yes, because they appealed to me, they need their money. They have brought their invoices. And everything the auditing thing had gone through. It got to audit and they said, oh, we want to see this document, and therefore we cannot them until, and we're breaking. GNPC breaks for holiday and come back maybe a week after New Year. Do you want to hold the vendor to ransom? Please, I think I didn't see anything wrong with that. And if as chief executive, I went in there to say that I've taken that unusual step. Please put aside the pre-auditing, pay them, and then later regularize it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Dr. Sapon, they came to you personally.
The documentations were up to scratch.
So, Dr. Sapon, they came to you personally to appeal to you that they needed the money and they could not wait 1 week for GNPC to resume.
But what is wrong with that? If they need the money, if the lady had been there with a document, would that have made any difference? I'm asking you.
Dr. Sapon, let me...
When the auditors wanted to cite the documents and the lady was there, would that have made any difference? Would I have needed to write a memo? Please, let us be pragmatic about the way we do business.
Back to the answer to that question, Dr. Sapon.
Yes.
If you were not someone who had headed Global Haulage before, who had a connection with that group, Dr. Sapon, let me finish my question. Yes. If you were not someone who had headed Global Haulage before, would they have felt comfortable to come to you with the confidence that due process would be circumvented for them?
Why wouldn't they? If you're a businessman, you're under pressure. It didn't matter whether it was me or somebody else. You needed to go. But even the confidence for me to do that is because I knew the documentations were right.
Dr. Sapon,
we make noise about these things as if...
Doc, let's stick to the issue. Respectfully, Doc, let's stick to the issue. What you're saying is that a company you used to work to came to you to tell you that we need money immediately, so please circumvent your due process in payment of the money and give us the money. And you did that.
They wouldn't tell me that. They wouldn't tell me. Nobody could have told me that. It's my judgment at the time. And for me to go into print means that there was nothing hidden.
That's fine. That's fine. So what they asked you to do was to pay the money immediately.
But was it all paid immediately? Ask yourself.
No, I'm asking what they asked you to do. Did they ask you to pay the money immediately?
See, you follow your payment through. People are chasing their invoices, their payment. They are following through from day one, running through with them. Then they got to a place that, but we have given you the documents. Why are your auditors saying that they can't find the documents? So, the documents are in the custody of the lawyer. Unfortunately, the lawyer has traveled to the Western region. We couldn't reach her during that period. And therefore, they are going to be held till about 10th of January or whatever. And I said, no, you can't do that to this thing because it is not them who are making it impossible to get their money. It's our system which is making it impossible for their money. So as chief executive, I could have done it for anybody else. And you
Right.
ask people who deal with me, I would have done it for them, not only Global College.
But then again, like you said, they came and they said that they needed the money immediately. And they could not wait from 29th December to 10th January for that.
But that is about 2 weeks. If you're a businessman, 1 day, 1 hour can make a difference. Please. If you're a businessman, 1 day can make a difference. So if they say that they have to wait for nearly 2 weeks, and I say, pay them. And we didn't even pay all. We paid a part. Because part of the story says that we even overpaid. Please, people should be careful. Who overpaid? Not with my background. I must tell you, I would never do that. I'm not that kind of executive, knowing that it's 7.4 or so, and then I'll pay 9.4. Please, give me that respect. You see, you write sensational stories.
Dr. Sapon, respectfully, we have not written a story. We have called you to speak. So if you can please answer the questions.
Those who wrote it, maybe I'll have issues with them. But
That's fine. That's fine.
Is, even where you are being courteous, you are coming back to me to find out what happened. They did not even have that courtesy. And I'm told they said they tried to reach me. Where did they try to reach me? I left Ghana on Sunday night, and I came yesterday. Please, when we are working,
right. So finally,
my phone.
Right.
You have sent me WhatsApp, text message, or whatever. Nobody called me.
Doc, again, this is something that happened on another platform. We can't answer for them. But
you have gone there to pick it up.
But then finally, Doc, would you say that the processes that went through that you call unusual, would you say it's good corporate practice?
Once I'm the chief executive, I've taken the bold step to write. It means there's nothing that I was hiding. There was nothing that I was hiding. The most important thing was that the board had approved the transaction. All documentations were in place. So what are we trying to do? Every documentation was in place. So what were we trying to do? Please let us...
But then, Dr. Sapon, you described it yourself as unusual.
But if it's unusual, if I've written it's unusual, that even should give me credit. Because I'm admitting that normally I'll wait for pre-auditing. But this time, you read the memo down there. I said, do a thorough post-audit after the holidays. Is there anything wrong with that?
Right.
Or you don't know the difference between pre-audit and post-audit and the purposes of both? Please, let us understand these issues very well.
Doc,
I'm not perturbed about the publication because I know that I have not taken $1 from anybody, and I'll never do that.
Doc, can you tell us again, you highlighted it earlier, but for the sake of emphasis, can you tell us again how you came to the decision of selecting Global Haulage as the person to sell you these properties?
But I think that one, you may have to talk to my officers who handle property, not chief executive. There's a search. People go around. People make offers to us. And many of them will come to our table. But knowing that the property is there, does it prevent me from buying if I'm buying it at the correct price? I just want to know. Because so if somebody is not connected and he has a $10 million property which is not worth that, I should go and buy that? That's not business sense.
So you did not buy the other, you did not buy from the other vendors for these reasons you state?
Yeah, because they have scattered one here, two here, one here, scattered all over, and you have a gated community located in a prime area in Takoradi. You don't want that one? I'm sorry. My connection with Global Haulage wasn't the influencing factor. Let me be honest with you.
So the selection of Global Haulage was because of the convenience that it will provide for the persons who would finally occupy the properties?
Yeah, I think for me, the gated community in Chapel Hill for staff gives them security, gives them a better environment. And then commuting between where the office is now and where it will be, where we are trying to locate the proper office around the PTC area, is a good location. We took all these things into account. Please,
Dr. Sapon, was this the cheapest option?
I cannot tell. I don't know unless I have all the reports before me. But when you are buying property, the question of something being cheap is relative. Is it the same quality? Yeah? Is it the same quality? Is it in the same location? Those who buy property, and I believe you know, buying a property in the airport residential area is not like buying in Kwabenya where I live. It can be the same building, the same design, but the location itself will give you a different value.
So here you prioritized the location over the cost?
Everything was taken into account. I think the committee which did the work will have considered all manner of factors in making that decision.
Right. And in this, the procurement authority and all the relevant authorities were consulted?
Well, you see, when we are buying property, and you are buying property from one source, you are buying the type of property you want. Please, these matters are matters that internally will have examined everything and made a decision. I think it was taking too much of my time. So let me get ready. I just came from abroad last night, and I have important meetings.
Thanks for joining us, Dr. KK Sapong. He is the CEO of GNPC. He's the former Butcher of Royal Bank, former CEO of Global Haulage. My friends are with me in the studio, Enimo Enimado, Malik Abbas Dabo, and Raymond Aqua. Malik, you walked in with so much verve. Let me begin with you.
Yeah, Daniel, I find it quite convenient that amongst all the companies that provided them with facilities, it was the one single company that he worked with and for, whose property they found suitable and
whose MD was his very good friend.
Absolutely.
Owner, yes.
Whose owner? In fact, he had been MD of Global Haulage before.
Yes.
Again, he says that, look, this company comes to me and says they needed their money and they couldn't wait.
For 12
That is
days.
true,
Yes.
because we know that at some point, Royal Bank, which is a sister company of Global Haulage, which owns this property, badly needed money to inject capital into the bank in order to save the bank from the eventual catastrophe that befell that bank. So we know that they needed the money. So when he says they needed the money, we know they needed the money. The fact that he took an unusual step, and he says that pretty much clear in his memo, that it was urgent and he had to take an unusual step, now speaks to the connection that he has. I think it is difficult to convince anyone that you who were MD of Global Haulage, you were MD of Royal Bank, which is a sister company of Global Haulage. Now you are GNPC. GNPC buys property from Global Haulage, which you managed before, and they needed the money to inject capital into Royal Bank, again, which you managed before. That the relationship did not play any role in this decision.
Well, that's his claim, and he's saying that he could have done it for anyone else. They could have gone to any.
He could have, except that he
official.
didn't. What he did, what we know for a fact, is that he did it for companies that he has relationship with, and it is difficult to extricate himself from any potential conflict.
And even deeper still is the fact that he took personal responsibility for the fact that due process or that their processes had been circumvented. I don't know how many of us would be willing to put on a piece of paper. And you see, the thing is, he's using that, there's this theory of hiding in plain sight. So he's using the theory of, why would I put it in paper? Why would it be on a memo? Why would I be so open with it if I had something to hide? But the question here is that what kind of loyalty or relationship do you have because ultimately you're putting your position at risk when you say that I am going to take responsibility for this thing because the lawyer is in the Western region. I thought she was like in Norway or somewhere, but really in the Western region, worst case scenario, if it was that urgent, you could even get a car. You can fly the person in. You can even drive. It's not that far, so that the due process.
No. He did say that she was difficult to contact
for a day.
No. Is
that not very convenient?
This did not just take a day. Let's be fair to what he said. This did not just take a day. Okay, Ray, finally.
So let's be clear. Now, the Global Haulage Group on its website list the Royal Bank as a subsidiary. So the owner of the Global Haulage Group actually owns Royal Bank, owns Global Haulage Company Limited, owns Cocoa Partners Foundation, Royal Bank Trust, the TRB Foundation, Imperial General Assurance Company Limited. So these are not unrelated institutions. It's not as if it was founded at a time and at a different time this one was also founded. The same institution recognized that these are subsidiaries of the bigger institution. So the connection cannot be dissociated.
And he doesn't deny that.
He doesn't deny that. Indeed, he said that I have headed 2 of the subsidiaries under the Global Haulage Group itself. It will be difficult for you to tell anybody, any least perceptive observer, that clearly there could not have been any influence on the side. Indeed, I'm willing to see, and I think that they should probe the process, the procurement process itself. They should probe in fact, they need an external auditor to deal with this matter so that we all be convinced that there was no attempt to influence the process or the process was not influenced unduly for one side, because it sounds to everybody that the only reason he even cites for choosing this is because the buildings were together.
Yeah. 18 to 21 in a gated community.
Guys, we need to move on, and let's apologize to listeners. We were unable to bring you the BBC News this morning, and we had to do the interview as soon as we got it. And so it's 60 minutes past 7. What we'll do is that we'll take these important messages, and then George Adu Jr. will bring us the Joy Sports Center. Stay with us. This is the Super Morning Show.
You look so much better when you smile. So smile.
Are you smiling today? Because it's another great day of smiles with Fidelity Bank. Switch your salary accounts to Fidelity and smile. Get a loan of up to 200,000 cedis and smile. Get approval within 2 days and smile. And there's no processing fee, so smile. Switch to Fidelity Bank and put a great big smile on your face today.